an Al-Qaeda suicide bomber.
All right, now let's talk specifically about Iraq, which is what your latest book entitled Why Do You Kill Zaid is about. You travelled to Iraq as recently as last year. Here in Britain we get various accounts of what's happening in Iraq. Some people tell us that the situation there is improving and that life is returning to normal. Others tell us it is still a disaster zone. What was your experience like?
The military situation, the stability, the security situation is improving, but that is a little bit cynical if I say that. Because it's improving because now, every day, only 200 civilians are killed in Iraq. And a year before, 600 were killed every day. So imagine just the tragedy. If you kill 100 people every day, 200 people every day, it means that you kill 6,000 per month, twice as much as died in the World Trade Center. So what we see on TV is not the real war in Iraq. We see a manufactured, a faked war. We see, I just give you some figures. You have per day round about 100 military actions by the US Army. Bombardments, razzias, shootings. You will never see them because the Pentagon doesn't bring the journalists to the places the Americans bombard. You have round about 100 per day, 100 military actions by the resistance, the real resistance, the real freedom fighters that fight against the American troops, that don't attack civilians. 100 actions. You will never see them on TV because if the Pentagon would bring the journalists to the places where the freedom fighters, the Iraqi resistance, is fighting against the American troops, they would have to accept that there is a resistance in this country, and this resistance is supported and backed by around about 70% of the population. You will never see it. What you see on TV is you have every day, not 100 or 200, 1 or 2 or 3 suicide attacks by this tiny group of foreign Al-Qaeda fighters in Iraq.
You've met with these resistance fighters,
yeah.
And you distinguish them from Al-Qaeda. Can you tell us a bit more about them?
But there are two differences. The first difference of a resistant fighter, of a freedom fighter, is that he would never attack a civilian. And Al-Qaeda is a terrorist gang that is attacking civilians. The second difference is the resistance is Iraqi, but Al-Qaeda, between 80 and 90% of the Al-Qaeda fighters are foreigners. And the resistance fighters that I met are just common people like you and me, working during the day and fighting at night. Or other people who are fighting every day and always as a full-time resistance fighter. They just had a tragedy in their family. Her wife killed by the American troops, or her children killed by American bombs. And these people are fighting against the occupation. They want to get their country free.
Okay, let's move on. You consider the Iraqi resistance legitimate. Do you also consider the people attacking NATO in Afghanistan, do you consider their fight legitimate?
Afghanistan is a different story. I know Afghanistan very well. I have been several times during the Soviet occupation together with Mujahideen in Afghanistan. But what I think that the resistance in Iraq is legitimate. I have a different opinion on the Taliban. I don't like the Taliban at all, but I think that nevertheless NATO should withdraw the troops from Afghanistan because we have no business in this country. It is not our duty to fight the Taliban. The Taliban are controlling 10% of the country. And the only reason why the Taliban get now a little bit more support from the Afghan population is because they are fighting against the Americans and against the British. And we should get out of this country. This is an internal problem of Afghanistan, and the Afghan have to solve this problem alone. And there's no reason why our soldiers should die in these countries, and why NATO should kill innocent people in this country, because NATO has killed around about 6,000 people last year, but half of them were innocent civilians.
So in terms of the Iraq War, that's a complete disaster in your opinion, and in your piece you say that the war on terror stems from ignorance on the part of our politicians. But are our leaders really that misinformed and blind to the reality of what's going on? Or do you think there's something more sinister at work here?
I don't think that there is something sinister on work. I know that I'm disappointing now many of your friends. I think it's a lot of ignorance. You know, Bush has never been in Iraq before he started the war against Iraq, and that's just the main problem. The reason why these crazy and terrible and criminal wars are possible is that no politician, no American politician, no British politician has ever lived like I did, for example, some days together with an Iraqi family,
but there are
or in an Afghani family.
There are entire departments in the CIA and various intelligence agencies dedicated to understanding the Middle East. Don't they help?
I read in the Baker Hamilton report that in the American embassy, there were 1,000 American employees, but only 6 were able to speak Arabic. So how will you understand this country?
You conclude your piece in the New York Times saying that we should have the objective of a world order that can be accepted as just by all states, a world without nuclear weapons, a world where the United States is seen as a symbol of peace and freedom rather than a symbol of repression and war. Is this really achievable in our lifetimes, or is it achievable at all?
I think it's not so difficult. We will never win the war on terror by only fighting the terrorists, because there's a reason why terrorists become terrorists. Nobody is born as a terrorist. We will win the war on terror the day when we start to treat the Muslim countries as we want to be treated, with respect and fairness. And the day when we start to treat the Muslim countries as fairly and as generously as we treat Israel, for example, then the terrorists have lost. There will be no more terrorists if we treat the Muslim countries as we want to be treated ourselves.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.